Let's talk about Doncaster, shall we, today? Because for those of you who may or may not know, with how Doncaster is run, it's run by the mayoral system. And if you have this, essentially, it means that the mayor is pretty much the one in charge. Even if, in this case, in Doncaster, where Labour won the mayoral election, but Reform are in sort of majority control of the council, it's the Labour mayor who runs the show. She makes about 95% of the decisions at these councils. That is how they are run. However, it can be a bit of a disaster if you maybe, I don't know, get someone who's really incompetent into one of these positions. And oh, trust me, if Reform had won this, generally if Reform had won this, we would be seeing a lot of incompetence going on here. The guy who they had running was not exactly, shall we say, the sharpest tool in the shed. It would be probably just as big a disaster as you would see going on in places like Cornwall or Kent or any of these other councils that we've been covering where they are in control. However, because they did not win the mayoral election, Reform there have become so salty. They are doing everything they possibly can to stop funding. They've tried desperately to stop DSA getting built, trying everything they can to roadblock and stop this. And now what they have done, because this is how bad they have now removed people who are in already in key committee positions. They have now removed them, especially from what has been the overview and scrutiny committee. They've removed the Labour chairs from there and instead installed their own. So make no mistake, we are probably going to be covering one of those meetings sooner or later. Now this has happened, but make no mistake, this is why a lot of councils have moved away from this system of like the mayors being sort of in overall control. But if Reform had gotten in there, oh boy, Doncaster would be in a world of pain right now. So you dodged a bullet there, Doncaster. I just think you understand how lucky you were in doing that. But let's go on into this and find out about this, and just continuingly how salty the Doncaster Reform people really are about losing that particular election. So anyway, before we do get on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Do remember to, of course, ring the bell as well so you get notifications when we drop a new video or when we go live. Down below, of course, there's the Patreon page. There's the Buy Me Coffee link where you can, well, buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and, of course, there's the YouTube membership button as well. There's also this little QR code up here that will take you straight to the Patreon page as well. So let's crack on then into this then, shall we? And find out. But trust me, they are salty as all hell about this. They have been since last May. Anyway, so Doncaster Council, Reform UK now lead on key scrutiny committee after extraordinary meeting. So an extraordinary meeting now of council and councillors approved Reform nominations now for a range of positions, including now for the important Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. Labour, of course, still control the city of Doncaster Council, and most council committees are, of course, intended to scrutinise and review the acts of Mayor Ross Jones and her cabinet, who, of course, make circa about 95% of all these key decisions. So this is why, because I've seen this before. I've even seen Reform people try to say, oh, look, but things aren't happening this bad in Doncaster, they must be good. No, that's because even though they have a majority on the council, they aren't in control. As you can see here, it is the mayor who is in control, making 95% of all those key decisions. That is why you have not seen any of this chaos go on at Doncaster Council. Desperate as though they are to try and take control, they are doing everything they can possibly to undermine the mayor from this. We saw this with DSA. They're still trying to find ways to undermine it, bear in mind. But this is it. They are doing everything they can to just trip them up, regardless of what those consequences might actually be, which, well, will be very bad consequences then for the people of Doncaster, because they are destroying stuff or wrecking stuff on purpose. So Mayor Jones's party, of course, still have vice chairs on these committees, and of course, the Environmental Overview Scrutiny Panel, Children and Young People Overview, and of course, the Scrutiny Panel on that. Reform UK, of course, currently remain in opposition to the Labour administration. The new chairs, now the vice chairs, will now head up the relevant scrutiny panels, as well as now the quasi-judicial planning committee and licensing committee, which are now non-political. Planning committee. Interesting that they managed to take control, again, of this non-political committee, where at the moment, in order to get a lot of the big plans in and done and around Doncaster Airport to really make it work, they just happen to be there. And oh, guess what? We're going to be able to do now. Say no. Start gumming up the works in and around that area. I can guarantee you now that is what is going to happen. So, introducing now the new nominations, Councillor Carl Hughes from Reform UK, and the deputy group leader said, when committee appointments were, of course, first made following the May elections, the process had to be completed quickly to allow the new council to begin its work. At that time, many of us were now newly elected and still finding our feet. So positions were filled in good faith without the benefit of seeing how members' skills and experience would develop in practice. Basically, what is that is, we didn't realize we could put ourselves in these key positions, and now we're upset that the Labour mayor is getting a lot of good press. We're now going to forcefully insert ourselves into these positions because we don't like the fact that they're getting so much good press now about this. Anyway, Councillor Hughes said that Reform had now recently undertaken a skills and abilities audit. Oh, wow. A skills and abilities audit. Wow. I would love to know what skills and abilities they've got on that one. Led, of course, by its new political advisor, Kathleen Moran, that were created now a refreshed and a far more capable team of nominees and committee leadership positions. He went on to add, the proposals are, of course, not about partisanship. They reflect now a mature and balanced approach. Yeah, it's absolutely not about partisanship, and it's not mature at all. It's these guys still throwing their toys out of the pram that they lost the mayoral elections, because who makes all the decisions? It's the mayor. Who's getting all the credit for all the good stuff going on in Doncaster? Oh, it's the mayor. Why are we not seeing any of the chaos currently on Doncaster, even though they have a majority on these with councillors? Because the mayor is in charge. If the Reform had won that mayoralship, oh boy, things would be bad. Things would be very, very bad on that one. Anyway, back to this. Conservative councillors will, of course, take up the vice chair roles, and, of course, both on the Overview Scrutiny Management Committee and the Audit Committee, while Labour colleagues will, of course, continue to hold 2 vice chair positions elsewhere. That ensures at least a political balance, continuity, and a fair reflection now of the chamber as it stands today. He continued. This is, again, desperately trying to put them into more positions to get some notice, saying, hey, we actually are doing some stuff. Reform, of course, UK nomination, Councillor Hughes, the new deputy group leader, and, of course, the chair, the OMS, Councillor Steve Cox, the Conservative group leader, of course, nominated by Reform to vice chair the group. So once again, as we've warned about before, Conservatives cozying up to Reform to get into positions on this. It's not too surprising. We warned about this would happen. Not surprising it's happening. Hughes, of course, stepped into the role of deputy leader after succeeding Councillor Rachel Reid, who, when rushing to a committee meeting, agreed to be like a deputy director of a business. I still don't know how that happened. And then, of course, got found out. And when you can't have that type of business, especially with how the new DSA has been set up, can't do that. Go back and watch that video. It's quite a hilarious tale. Anyway, back to this. Reid was, of course, the deputy group leader and chair of the MMS, but she resigned from both roles back in September. She currently does remain a Reform UK councillor. The resignations, of course, follow the controversies surrounding the Fly Doncaster Auxiliary Services Limited, which is, again, is what we're talking about, A company, of course, established by Councillor David Knight and Councillor Reid to do business with the council on Doncaster Sheffield Airport, which again, you cannot do. That was very, very wrong of them to do. Councillor Knight was, of course, booted from the party over the saga and now sits as an independent. Reid, of course, cut ties with the controversial business within days of it being established. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it was just a complete accident, but no, you cannot do that type of thing. But they did. They did it very foolishly so, but there you go. Anyway, senior Conservative, Councillor Jane Cox, was also nominated by Reform UK to vice chair the audit committee chaired by Reform UK's Councillor Jason Charity. So once again, Conservatives, Reformers, cuddling up to each other on that one. Other, of course, key changes include Craig Ward nominated to the chair of the licensing committee, Councillor Neil Woods to chair the planning committee. As part of these nominations, Reform also took aim at many of the chair and vice chair positions held by Labour councillors. Councillor Khan was, of course, formerly the chair of the planning committee. Councillor Gemma Coby was, of course, vice chair of the audit committee, and Labour, the cooperative, Councillor Jane Kidd was, of course, vice chair of the OSCS. So, as you can see, this is now being deliberately targeted in a way. This isn't a we're being mature. Now, once again, they're upset. They didn't win. The mayor currently in Doncaster is getting a lot of very good press, especially around DSA and other stuff that they're doing there. They're not happy. So what they've done essentially is they've thrown the toys out of the pram. They've cuddled up with Conservative. Let's get rid of some of these Labour councillors from some of these key committee positions, and we're going to start dishing the dirt of what's really going on in Doncaster. No, prepare for some very interesting committee meetings going forward. That's for sure. Anyway, there's the full list of this on this one. The reports, of course, published by the Doncaster Council website do suggest that there would now also be changes to the Communities and Environment and Overnews Scrutiny Panel. However, Reform UK said that this was a mistake, and the vice chairs of this panel were not changed. Yeah, because they've got no interest in a communities and environment, essentially. That's why those committee chairs were not changed. Because all those ones, very strategically placed. Look at who they've changed. Audit committee, overview scrutiny committee, to like overview the strategy on this, planning, licensing, key very committees, which again give them a lot of power, give them a lot of chance to once again start trying to force to trip up the mayor, because they are not happy once again that they are not in charge, and they've teamed up with the Conservatives to do it. Once again, I don't know why the Conservatives done this. Maybe they just want to do this anyway. Again, just to trip up Reform, to trip up Labour, but you're getting into bed with some very bad people, guys. I wouldn't think this is going to do you any favors. Reform, of course, renominated chairs and vice chairs in order to regain control of the OCMS after Councillor Reid stepped down as a committee chair, the vice chair, and Councillor Kidd took over on an interim basis. Without, of course, the extraordinary meeting, Reform would have had to wait until the next scheduled meeting of the full council meeting back in November of 2025 in order now to nominate a new OCMS chair. By November's meeting, the OCMS chairs will have already reviewed and scrutinised Mayor Jones' plans for Doncaster Sheffield Airport under the direction of Councillor Kidd. So once again, all goes back to them not liking the fact that Doncaster Sheffield Airport going to be reopening again. Oh, what a surprise. Once again, Reform doing anything they can to try and get rid of this and stop this airport from reopening. Anyway, local democracy reporting services, of course, do understand that Reform wanted one of its own chairs to chair the OCMS meetings and, of course, during the DSA reviews, resulting in the extraordinary meeting, of course, being called. A spokesperson for the local party said, "We believe that now is the time to take a more direct role, ensuring decisions made by this administration are estimated and delivered for value for the people of Doncaster." Don't worry, we'll be probably watching this meeting when it happens, because I'm sure they'll be calling out all kinds of stupid and ridiculous stuff that happens on this one. We now feel confident in taking lead on these key committee roles to deliver on our communities. I'm sure. Why didn't you go in there in the first place? Oh, that's right, because You didn't know. They just weren't aware because they were so confident they were going to win the mayoral position that they didn't need to be on these committees. So they just no thought was put into them. Anyway, they continued at this very same time. We acknowledge the death of experience across the chamber. I'm sure there is, considering what's been going on at these other reform councils. I'm sure there's the depth of experience there. Probably out of their depth, more likely. It also believed to reflect the appointing the vice chairs now from other parties. It is about effective governance, not partnership. Yeah, vice chairs from other parties. The only other party you've done them put them onto is, of course, from the Conservatives, who basically you seem to have now become very buddy with. Yeah, totally not partisan at all. Totally not partisan at all. Um, expect there to be more silliness in and around this. It is going to be once again attacking DSA in an attempt to try and stop DSA from opening. They're going to try anything they can, anything they possibly can to try and stop this or say that, oh, we're now in charge. We don't like that's happening, so we're going to put a stop on this again. They'll delay this. This is their tactic. They do not want DSA to open, regardless of what comments they've said in the past. Everything otherwise, they would be supporting what not only what Mayor Ross Jones has been doing, but also what Oliver Coppard is doing with South Yorkshire as well, putting all that investment into DSA as well. Why aren't they supporting all that? Oh, that's right, because they're not the ones in charge, and because they didn't want DSA to reopen. Salty. That's all it is. Pure salt. They hate the fact that they lost that election for the mayoralship, and they've been salty about it ever since. And trust me on this one, Doncaster dodged a bullet because your mayor makes 95% of all the decisions on the council. Given what we've been seeing in all these other councils, what chaos would be going on right now in Doncaster Council if Reform had that level of control? I don't think it would be too good. I think we would probably be on at least a weekly basis talking about the craziness going on in Doncaster if that was the case. But as always, let me know what you think about this, especially if you are from Doncaster. Always lovely to hear from the people who are local, suffering from these reform people. But as always, thank you very much for all your help and support. Do remember to click on the like and share button on your way out. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.